This is Pod Populi, podcasts for the people.
Welcome back to the Wedding Buzz. It's your host, Sydney, and today we are going to do a little recap on 2024. This year was such a great year, you guys. This was my biggest year yet. I'm so grateful. My company really seemed to rock it in 2024, and I have even bigger plans for 2025, and I'm just genuinely grateful and excited for what has happened and what is soon to come. I thought it would be really fun to do a little recap on everything that happened in 2024, tell you some crazy stories because I am surprised with something that happens at every single wedding. Let me tell you, wedding planning has a lot of organization in it, but it also is a wild ride. But I personally love it. Before we dive in, I do want to say thank you. Thank you so much to anyone who listens to this podcast, anyone who has been a client of mine, the families of my clients. I've become close with not only my clients, but with some of their families. And everyone has been so great and so nice. And I just appreciate it so much. I also want to thank my friends, anyone who has supported me in my personal life. It's meant the world to me. And I definitely would not be here where I am without you. My company, this company, Delightful Planning, this podcast, The Wedding Buzz, wouldn't be here without everyone's support. So from the bottom of my heart, I want to say thank you. I want to shout out a few people. First of all, my husband, Bryce. Being married to an entrepreneur is not always the easiest thing, especially in the first few years of starting a business. So thank you to him for his support. He definitely has been dragged to many events. And anytime I feel like I need some more muscles, I'm like, hey, can you come with me and load the truck or unload the truck? A couple months ago, I fell and hurt my knee. And let me tell you, he came to that wedding and was setting up, the aisle of the ceremony. I guarantee you, this boy never in a million years thought he would be working weddings, setting up weddings, tying bows, any of it. But he married me and a wedding planner. So he is along for the journey, but he's a great sport. So thank you to him. I want to thank my parents. They're so supportive and helpful to me. Literally, as I was planning this podcast, they were sending me pictures. They of a business card. They were chit chatting with someone who happens to work in the wedding industry, and they're always like, "Hey, my daughter's a wedding planner, and maybe this is a good connection." And that's just a small example of how supportive they are, and they're always trying to help me. And I really appreciate it. They're my biggest cheerleaders, so thank you to them. My mom has worked a few weddings and events with me. My dad has done an expo with me. My dad went to Wedding MBA in Vegas with me. I might talk about that later, but they are huge cheerleaders of mine, and I appreciate it. I also want to shout out my friend Tim. He's truly been like a big brother to me since I was a little kid. His kids were the flower girl and ring bearer in my wedding and my sister's wedding. He also is the brain behind my new beautiful website. So if you haven't checked that out yet, go check it out, delightfulplanning.com. I do have a new website, all thanks to Tim. He has a company, Let's Launch Marketing and Advertising. So go check him out if you are in need of a new beautiful website. Definitely check him out. He is awesome. He's a really smart guy. He was a marketing director of a big company and then took the leap and started his own business. So big shout out to him. He's one of my biggest supporters and biggest helpers. And he's honestly, been my big bro for like 15 years now. So big shout out to him. So with that said, let's go back to the beginning of 2024 because I want to share some of this journey. I don't want to share too much personal information. I won't share any names, but some of these stories are too good not to share. So we started off the year with a venue that decided to shut down for full renovations. They did not tell anybody that they were going to shut down. They ghosted all of their couples and vendors for about 4 or 5 months at like the end of 2023. And then the beginning of 2024, they just popped back up and said, hey, we're ready to reopen and ready to host the wedding. And we were like, when I tell you, we were signing a contract for a new venue and going to get lawyers to get the money back on this original one. Like we were signing a contract like that day. And they popped back up and we're like, yeah, we're going to have the wedding. We're ready to go. And meanwhile, we had physically like driven to this venue and it was fully under construction. It was like a ghost town other than construction workers, but they had no idea what was happening. Like there was no front desk, there was no actual hotel um employees there. It was wild, you guys. I didn't even that was a first. That was a first. I was really struggling to even guide my couple on how to handle it because I had not had a venue completely shut down and ghost. But they did reopen. And even when we started going there, like, so they told us, okay, we're reopening. And, they were like, oh no, you have to have the wedding here. You're not getting your money back. So my client was like, I want to do it. And I was like, okay. So we went there for a tour, still under construction, just done enough for us to take a tour of the newly renovated place. Um, when I tell you that it was under construction until like 2 days before this wedding, believe me when I say that it was wild. But I will say the wedding was great. We had the best day. The day was so smooth. Little hiccups. The other thing is because they were shut down for so long, they lost all their staff. So they had all brand new staff for this wedding day. So I was definitely in the kitchen that day, like telling their servers, like, okay, we need chicken, we need steak, we need like, let's go. I usually, as the planner, don't step into the kitchen and into that role, but that day I did. And the day happened and it was a great day. My clients were happy. The pictures were beautiful. The guests were happy. That's all that matters. So that's how we started the year. That's how we started 2024. Um, I did mention this a few weeks ago, but I did have in March a bird pooped on my bride. So that was fun. She was a great sport, but did have a bird poop on the bride. I also had a photographer take the bride and groom on a golf cart for photos during cocktail hour, which was part of the plan. I knew that they were going to take the golf cart and going to go do that, but the timeline had about 15-20 minutes for them to do this. They didn't come back for almost an hour. I called them probably 10 times. I was outside looking for them, but they took the golf cart out on the golf course. By that time it was dark. I couldn't find them. I couldn't go get in my car and drive the golf course. So that was definitely interesting. I had the guests were seated in the reception space and basically just staring at me, wondering why the reception wasn't starting. Eventually, they came back, they returned, and everything was fine. We were, a little delayed, but it is what it is. We kind of wrapped things up a little quicker and got the show on the road. I will say later, the photographer said something along the lines of like, oh, the timeline doesn't really matter, which was wild to me because the timeline is like my bread and butter that day. Like timeline is Bible on wedding day. So safe to say I won't be using that photographer again, but everything worked out fine. Again, the guests were happy, the clients were happy, the family was happy. I ended up happy. So it doesn't really matter. I did have a mother-in-law wear white. I didn't think that people actually do that, but they do. The mother-in-law wore white to the wedding. So that was quite interesting. I'm going to take a quick break and then we'll be back with a few other stories from 2024. Okay, we are back with some more stories from 2024. So we ended with the mother-in-law wearing white. The next thing that happened in 2024, these are obviously there's so much that comes to mind, but these are just like some of the bigger highlights that I look back and laugh at. But I did have a beach wedding where it thunderstormed all day. So for anyone having an outdoor wedding thinking it won't rain, I don't want to stress you out, but have a plan B. Have a plan B because it was thunderstorming all day. I will say it wasn't too surprising because it was the end of May. So I kind of expected that in South Florida. It definitely rains every afternoon. I would count on it raining every afternoon between April and October-ish in Florida, but it definitely was a little stressful. I felt bad for the bride. She was really excited to have her beach wedding. And I did have to be the bearer of bad news of like, we have to bring this inside. I will say it was a good call because it was kind of on and off all day. And when like the exact time of the ceremony starting, it just Sky was pitch black, thunderstorming, but we had moved it inside. So it was a beautiful wedding and no one got wet. And the bride ended up really happy, especially when she saw that it was thunderstorming outside. She was fine with it. Thank God we had a plan B, a space for it. We set it up, no big deal. It was a really great day. I will say, fun fact, this wedding that got rained on was the same venue that shut down in the beginning of the year. And this couple was also like ghosted from this venue, and they weren't my clients at that time. Um, but the venue told them 2 weeks before their wedding that they had to have a coordinator. I don't know. I need to look back at their contract with the venue and see if the contract said that they had to have a coordinator and they just missed it. But they called me to the venue told them, "Hey, you have to have a coordinator." And they were like, "What? We don't have one. We didn't know." And they're like, "Well, you have to have one." And so the venue was like, "Well, call Sydney because she dealt with us before, so maybe she'll deal with us again." So I did. I did. And honestly, the day was good. I will say once that venue reopened, they really pulled it together. So that's good for them. I wish them the best of luck. I don't know how much I will be recommending them, but it is a pretty venue and they're reopened and hopefully everything's working out well for them. But that was also wild of getting a call 2 weeks before their wedding being like, "We have to have a coordinator." I will say I'm glad that they did hire me because there was a lot to pull together in just 2 weeks before the wedding. But it happened. It was great. It was a good day and I'm super happy. One other thing that comes to mind for later in the year was I had a dad that was too drunk to do his speech. And I also had a bride that was throwing up for 4 hours before her wedding ceremony. So those were very interesting situations, but I will say everyone handled it like a champ. Sometimes we just have to be flexible. Um, and it is what it is. We keep going and we make it work. We make it work. I'm going to take another quick break and we'll be right back. Okay, we are back. And I'm so sure that there are other situations, but these were some of the first things that come to mind. Planning weddings is always a wild ride, but I look back and laugh, and I learned from every situation. And I must say that everything turned out just fine. And thank God I don't have any true horror stories. Some other things that happened this year that were, you know, that really stand out to me is I got to work at some incredible venues that were on my bucket list. I will say the Pelican Club is one of them in Jupiter. It's a stunning venue. I was so excited to work there for the first time. And I actually have another wedding coming up at the Pelican Club. So that was a big win. I also have two weddings coming up at the Bend in West Palm. That's another beautiful venue. So I'm very excited to work there. Just about a month ago now, I was able to go to Wedding MBA, which is a huge wedding vendor conference in Las Vegas. That's the one I was saying that my dad came with me. My dad had a big business for 30 years and now he does business coaching at like an executive level. So who better to bring to a business conference than a business coach slash dad? But no, it was really a great week. We stayed at Resorts World in Las Vegas, which was beautiful. And at Wedding MBA, it was 3 days of some of the best wedding vendors in the country and speakers. And they talked all about the wedding side of it and how to, you know, make a wedding day work and how to do the planning process. And then they also talked a lot about business, which was really helpful. Kind of brought me back to my like college days of being a business major and then my MBA. So I was very excited. It was the first time I was in like a classroom setting in a few years. And I really, really enjoyed it and enjoyed the opportunity to go to Las Vegas. Like, I don't think if you told me a few years ago that this business would be taking me to all these different places and to Las Vegas and meeting all these couples, like, I don't know if I'd believe you. So I'm very excited that that happened. I'm considering signing up for next year, to be honest. So Although some wild things happened this year, there was also so many incredible moments. And I just want to also specifically talk about my couples. I had such amazing couples this year. I had some couples that were already married, but they were just renewing their vows. I had couples that had been together for 12 years. They met in college and finally, after 12 years, were getting married. I'm trying to think of some other big ones that stand out to me. I don't know some of their stories. Like they're just all so sweet and so incredible, and I feel honored that I formed like genuine relationships with them. I do feel like they say business isn't personal, but for me business is so personal. This is my whole world. My couples are all like my little babies that I have to take care of and make sure that their wedding dreams come true. So I am so grateful to all the couples, and I also have a bunch of couples signed up for 2025. We have, starting in January, we have multiple weddings, and I am starting to like, get down to the final details with them. And I'm so grateful for my 2025 couples. Like I said, I have Pelican Club coming up, St. Edward's Church, St. Edward's Catholic Church in Palm Beach. It's a beautiful Catholic church. I'm very excited to work there. Um, I have the Ben in West Palm, like I mentioned. Now my mind is absolutely blanking on other venues that I have coming up, but I'm very excited for what is to come next year and all of my lovely couples. So, again, if you were part of my ride the past few years, but specifically in 2024, thank you for, being here, whether you are a couple, whether you're a family of a couple, whether you're my family, my friends, if you're listening to the podcast, thank you to everyone who has, been support along the journey. I'm so excited and grateful for where we have come so far and so excited to see where we go in the future. We have big plans for 2025. So I know it's going to be a great year. Um, Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you next week.